So in this video, we're going to be talking about malaria, which is a parasitic disease. That basically means the type of microbe involved in the disease is a protozoa. And the way malaria is transmitted is through a mosquito vector, which means that infected mosquitoes bite host organisms, and that's how they transmit the disease. And the study I focused on basically laid out a new way for malaria to be prevented and the spread of malaria to be prevented. But in order to understand that, we first have to establish the basic feeding mechanisms of the mosquito. And so here we have chicken nuggets, a hamburger, and fries. So the chicken nuggets are going to represent chicken, like live chickens. The hamburger will represent cattle, and the humans will be represented by fries. And we also have this bottle of ketchup. So what I'm gonna do is basically put ketchup on these host organisms, and the amount of ketchup that I put on them will be representative of the amount of infected mosquito bites they would retain in certain situations, and that basically means the amount of malaria they would contract in certain situations. So we're outside right now, so that's the biggest condition for this representation. So if we're outside, the chickens or the chicken nuggets would get no ketchup on them. The cattle or the hamburger would get a lot of ketchup on it, and the fries would get just a little, significantly less than the hamburger. So basically what that means is that in the outdoors, the mosquitoes that carry malaria prefer to infect cattle and prefer to transmit the virus to the cattle. And sometimes to the humans, but not as much. So humans are not in as much potential danger when they're outside, and none to the chickens, which is important to remember as we move to our next situation. Okay, so now we're in a different condition, but literally the only change to the experimental conditions would be that we're inside now. That's the only thing that we've changed. We've got the same host organisms, and consider hypothetically that everything else would be the same. So now that we're inside, we can look at how malaria would spread, right? And so we'll get a lot on the humans, which are the fries in this case, a little on the cattle, and none on the chicken. Okay, so what does this mean? So this means that as compared to outside, where the preferred host organism for the mosquitoes were the cattle, now it's the humans. So this is a situation where humans are now in more danger because of being inside instead of outside, and having an increased rate of malaria transmission from mosquitoes. Okay, and so last time I told you to keep in mind that the chickens didn't get any ketchup on them outside. Well, they don't get any on them inside either. So what does this mean? Chickens are actually a non-host organism for malaria. And the mosquitoes know this, and what's actually really interesting is through their sense of smell, chickens know to avoid, or mosquitoes know to avoid the chickens. So let's take a look at how this could be potentially useful and what the researchers actually discovered. So we're still inside. So based off everything I've told you, we should put a lot on the fries and none on the chicken. But now we've moved the chicken and the fries to the same house, or the same plate, if you will. So we're actually gonna put ketchup on neither. And why that's basically important, and this is exactly what the researchers figured out, is that in these countries where malaria is actually a problem, you can use chicken odors and live chickens as a way to repel the mosquitoes and stop the transmission of malaria to humans while they're indoors.